Hello and welcome to FTP, the Future Tech and Policy Podcast, where we take a closer look at the tech news and trends across the news and web in the last couple of weeks, and we discuss what's been happening with tech with a focus on opportunity, policy, and social impact. We are sponsored by the Institute of Government and Public Affairs, or IGPA, a research center housed at the University of Illinois System. We're joined by faculty affiliates at all three UI system universities in Urbana-Champaign, Chicago, and Springfield. IGPA conducts interdisciplinary nonpartisan research by bringing faculty expertise across disciplines to policy discussions regarding the top issues facing Illinoisans. Here on the FTP show, we have a goal of bringing faculty members and panel guests together to discuss emerging tech issues of the day and think toward the future to ensure positive impact of tech on society. And we hope that through our podcast, we can demystify some of these technology issues that we're seeing in the news and join the public discussion to make research more applicable outside of universities and labs. I'm your host, Jeremy Reel. I'm an assistant professor of educational psychology and technology at the University of Illinois, Chicago. I research the design and use of AI and simulation-based systems in education, as well as how we can support educators and students with using and learning about AI in productive, responsible, and safe ways. I'm also the co-lead for the Science and Technology Working Group at IGPA, which produces this podcast. I have the pleasure of working with this interdisciplinary group of panelists on the show and others who are interested in exploring how technology, science, and society all intersect and how we can build the best solutions to shared social challenges. All right, so I got my panel guests here today, are my panel members. We are going to start bringing guests on the show here pretty soon too, which is going to be pretty fun. But let's have everybody else introduce themselves. Zach McDowell.
My name is Zach McDowell, well, as he just said. I am an associate professor in the Department of Communication at the University of Illinois, Chicago, and my studies focus on information production and particularly on AI and how it is used in, or Wikipedia and how it's used in AI.
And my buddy Alvin, are you ready?
Glad
you haven't been on the show in a while, so it's great to have you back.
Yeah, no, I'm glad to be back. So thank you for inviting me back, Jeremy. So my name is Alvin Chin. I'm a visiting clinical assistant professor in the Department of Information and Decision Sciences that's housed in the College of Business Administration. So I teach courses to business students on AI. And my particular research is working with Jeremy in regards to responsible AI. I'm also part of the AI 2030, which is the Responsible AI Institute here in Chicago. And also as well, I also look at human-centered AI. So I'm looking at AI for human social computing in the sense of for mobile, social networking, on how to use AI to be able to help to connect us with people during events. So glad to be here. Thank you very much.
Yeah, great to have you both on the show. Thank you both for introducing yourselves and letting us know a little bit about your work. Just so everybody knows who are new to the show, what we do is we look at some of the hot tech news that's been going around the web, and we kind of look at it and think about some of the social and policy implications associated with some of these things we're seeing from our different disciplines. So what we're going to do, we're going to hit up some specific news items. Anything that we mention, we're going to drop the links in the discussion section below so you can go check them out yourself. But let us start with a couple fun things. We like to start with the weird and interesting. So the first one was we're starting to see kind of a reversal in the labor force. We've got AI agents now reportedly hiring humans. So this was a website like Rent a Human, and it was an AI agent acting completely autonomously. These AI agent systems can go put out a call for gig labor to have a human go promote something that the AI agent is trying to promote. So this, it's people holding signs, it's people doing crazy stunts and things like that. So this one caught my eye. I thought it was interesting that you're being hired by a bot that the person who controls the bot may not even know that they're hiring people. So what's your guys' takes on that?
I mean, this is basically straight out of a sci-fi novel, like where the are they doing this because they need certain things done, or is there a nefarious larger plan going on? I don't know.
For me, I think it's a lot of people just experimenting too. What's going on? The proof of concept, like I can do it, so I'm gonna try. Or what can we do?
Yeah, so I think it's also like to kind of add to what you said, Jeremy. It's like when I saw it too as well, it kind of like surprised me. But I think just reading through the article too as well, it's like basically testing the limits, right? What AI can and cannot do, right? So it's just really just testing these type of limits. But it really kind of begs the question, what is that implications, for society? And the thing is that if an AI bot wants to rent me, how much is it going to charge me? How much are you going to charge me that I can be able to make some money, right?
Are you able to negotiate with the bot on your hourly rate? Do you get to have a full nice little contract negotiation with it?
And the thing is that do I need to report that to the IRS?
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure. Like that's never going to change. One thing that comes to my mind, though, is Illinois has laws regarding the use of AI during hiring processes, across industries. And so I'm wondering how that plays. I haven't looked into it, but, we're going to talk about this here in a second. But our AI Policy Atlas project at IGPA, we looked at various laws across the country. And one of those things in Illinois that exists is certain regulations associated with how AI can influence or be involved in the hiring process. So what happens when an AI just completely hires you from the whole process is AI moderated? That I am interested to see where that goes, because I don't.
The AI can't be involved. Can it hire you?
Yeah. I don't have an answer for that, but it immediately came to mind.
So I think the thing is that it's trying to test the limits of AI in terms of the technology or so. But I think it's very important that we look at what is the ethical and responsible uses of AI. And this is a prime example that even though yes it can be done, but is it something that should be done? And do we need to, as humans, need to get involved to kind of like get to the point where we kind of regulate or even just totally just stop it before it gets out of control?
Yeah. Anything last to add there, Zach?
Just this is going to be an interesting one to watch. I'm fascinated by. We've talked a lot about computer agents for a long time, and now we're bringing the agentic back to humans, but in the way that we've always known. Because the thing about technology is, the more it progresses, the more we end up being like the curators and caretakers of our robots, right? Rather than vacuuming, I'm just fixing my vacuum robot all the time. So let's see what the bots need us to do.
How often do you have to fix your hiring bot? I wonder if it breaks down at all, or it starts, overpays, or it hits the wrong bank account or something. I don't know.
I'm imagining a Mrs. Davis situation where like eventually they're not hiring you. What they're doing is they're saying, we'll do this thing for you if you do this thing for us. So now there's no transaction, right? There's nothing to tax. And now this is how actually they cause governments to collapse, because when there's no money changing hands, but people are getting what they want, then they cause actual chaos. So
the agentic bartering end of the world.
Exactly. Agentic bartering end of the world.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the next one. We a lot of board gamers on our working group, so this one resonates a lot with us. But AI got to serve as an archaeologist recently. There was an ancient board game found some number of years ago, Roman board game on a big piece of marble, and there were these like recessed stone areas and places for the pieces to move. Every archaeologist assumed it was a board game, but nobody had any idea how this thing was played. There's no rules written down anywhere, but just the way that the patterns were, ancient board game scholars, which that is a field of study, assumed, and makes me wonder, I should have done that as a career. But the board game had no rules. How do we figure that out? What they did is they put a bunch of LLMs adversarially against each other, testing out thousands of variants of ancient game rules just to kind of see what fits. And they looked at the wear patterns on the board. Where were the most common movements? And they were able to detect that with, very fine laser guided, cameras and things like that. And then they have narrowed down basically this is how the game's played. Where these scientists found, here's a set of rules, and now they have a simulator online. They wrote a web-based version of this game that you can go and play. They said it's kind of like a defense game where you had one side trying to attack and the other side trying to defend, and classic board games, ancient board games, all borrow similar rules across cultures in many ways sometimes. So it's that was they use that as the source of information. But I just thought this was super cool, a really interesting case of AI being used for happiness and joy as opposed to Zach's end of the world. This can give us new games. It can help us figure out learn a little bit
to keep us entertained at the end of the world. Yeah. I'm all for anything that makes it easier for me to learn a board game, since all of our attention span is limited by all the doom and gloom. So if the AI can tell me how to play the game better and easier and explain it without having to read a 30-page manual, then great.
Well, I'm still terrible at chess. I've been playing since I was a kid, and I still am really bad at the strategy. I know that there's all these strategies that are used, but I just maybe it can help me pay attention to the specific things I need to up my game.
So for me, when I heard about this, I was like totally blown away. Because the thing is that when you think about archaeology, right, people spend a lot of time to study particular artifacts. And being able to have an AI to actually determine, what that was with, limited information that was available, and piecing it all together, it really, I think, changes, if it hasn't already, changed the field of archaeology, right? In terms of that, now you can have an AI as a partner to help you to kind of determine, particular fossils or particular things that normally would take a lot of time for you to kind of study and figure out, what happened during the history. So I think this really changes the game in terms of how we study civilization and the history of ancient, cultures and so forth. So it's not just the gaming part of it, but also the history part too.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Anything else? Moving on. Let's move on. Alvin, you brought it up, and I had seen this headline also. I was fascinated by the recent live performance for the Chinese New Year that's being celebrated this week, and the use of robots, the use of full human robots that have swords and are dancing alongside humans on stage. This has always been the case. Robots have used AI and machine learning for decades now, probably, but now we're going to start to really see this fusion of physical meets AI and agentic control, and that was really on display this week with the live performance in China for the New Year's, and just the dancing robots, and just spectacular show. It was amazing to see.
Yeah, and also too, the thing is that in China, the robotic industry has been exploding, and actually, robots have been used in the Chinese New Year galas for at least, I would probably say, at least 5 years or more has already been used. But the one that was showed, this year, just totally, I think, went to the next level, because before you had robots that would do very simple tasks, right? And so forth. But now you're actually beginning to see these robots are performers, right? Before robots, we think of robots doing particular tasks, like in the manufacturing, right? In the factory, they doing specific things that they're tasked to do. Now they're doing things that they have to perform, and there's art involved and so forth. And so the thing is that, and even the movements, right? If you remember before, I remember for robots, they had remember the time when we had, when Boston, Dynamics, showed their first robot.
The robot dogs, scary robot dogs. Yeah.
But now, just like you said, Jeremy, they can even now do sword fighting. And the thing is that I think this really changes the game in terms of now, in terms of performance, and in terms of, creativity and art, that now we're beginning to have AI and robots working simultaneously with humans and working together with humans. And then that kind of begs the question, well, will it get to the point where maybe the entire performance is all by AI robots and that there's no actually human that will be there in that, performance?
I think the humanities has a lot to say about that. And
yeah, no, of course. Yeah. So
the question is, whose entertainment is it for? Is it robots dancing for humans, or at some point are the robots just dancing for robots, and what does that look like? But we'll see. The humanities definitely
for robots. I mean, it just sounds like a Futurama episode to me.
Yeah. But I mean, this is why I think exactly what you said is right. The if nothing else, there's even more of a need for the humanities now, more than ever, with these types of things, because we need to understand, what is it that really, means something for us.
And also to add to as well is that, some of the things that the performers do they can get injured, right? And so maybe those particular things where that can be offloaded to do to a robot, right? Then so the human can be doing other types of performances that are less prone to, injuries. Like, for example, everybody knows about, Jackie Chan and how many times he's been to the hospital, right? Doing all these, stunts and kung fu and things like that, right? So perhaps now maybe in certain types of, movies or whatever, you might now have robots that might be doing those particular type of things. So then, you don't have a lot of, humans that are, because a lot of stuff that, Jackie Chan has done was almost life-threatening, right? He has so many, surgeries and whatever because of all the different things that, he did in those movies.
He's got a lot of good stories to go with those surgeries too.
Right, exactly.
How did I get that scar? Yeah, so we'll see that, the robo stunt doubles probably starting to show up a little bit more too. All right, let's move into some recent news out of our policy group at IGPA. Not this week, but last week, we launched the IGPA AI Policy Atlas, which is a data explorer tool at aipolicyatlas.com that takes a look at enacted laws across the country, across the United States, from the last 3 years pertaining to AI, particularly generative AI, and AI adjacent issues like, energy, data use, data protections, data centers, that kind of stuff. So we were seeing a lot of different legislation. We categorized it, cataloged it, put it up on the Data Explorer. And so now there is a nice map that you can click on that website where you could see all the different laws for each state that have been enacted related to AI during that time period, as well as sorting by bill type or the type of legislation it is, the type of law it is regulating. And you can kind of sort by that as well and see the distribution across the United States. And I think one of the biggest lessons that there is out of this is it's just very, very varied. There's a lot of variation across the several states, and there's not a lot of, clear patterns of how laws were enacted, but there's, this it's really useful to look at it in my perspective, because it lets you see the different discussions that have been happening across the 50 states related to AI and safety, security, as well as the investments and opportunities that the states are trying to pursue with AI. So we just want to share that out. What are your guys' takes on it? Alvin, I know you worked on it. Zach, you had conversations about it, with the working group, but Alvin, you were on the team. Just would like to hear both your thoughts on this.
Yeah, so I think, from my point of view, I think this is really great because I think this now is able to legislators and, folks that may not be, AI technically oriented, they can now go ahead and easily kind of see things, this map idea is really, really great because that really people can associate visually with geographical, right? And with a map and being able to compare, different states and being able to see, how many, determining, how many, legislations have been done in a particular, state. And then from there, being able to drill down. It saves a lot of time because a lot of people, if they want to look at this stuff, where do they start? How do they go ahead and find it? So it's really great that we kind of vetted, all this kind of knowledge and being able to make it really easy for folks to, find things that for, let's say, their particular, state, and learning from others too as well.
Yeah, this is fantastic. I think, folks need to see what's happening. Policy moves much slower than all these other things that are going on. And, understanding what's going on and what might be coming down the pike, and is important to see and understand, like the conversation that's happening. And it's great to be able to see it all in one space, because this stuff is moving fast, and policy moves a lot slower, but still, everyone's trying to play catch up right now. So I think it'll be a great tool, hopefully, for other policy makers as well, to see kind of what's going on and how they can take a page from others.
Yeah, that was one of our driving questions, is just, information on how have other states addressed similar issues. If you're asking or thinking about an issue, how have those regulations actually panned out in other states? One extra thing about that policy atlas, though, is we also really did an in-depth on the definitions, legal definitions that appeared in all these regulations, because, defining AI and machine learning can be different for every person also. So one of the things we did is we took key definitions that were made in any law and we cataloged them, and then we kind of compared them against each other. So, you could go on that website and you can look at a specific term like artificial intelligence and see the different ways that it has been defined across the different states. And it's all varied. There's not a lot of, full consistency between a lot of these definitions either. And as we know, and it's sad that Ken's not here to talk about the legal aspects of this, but like the legal definitions of things matter. And so, in thinking about policy, if somebody, a legislative body is trying to consider policy, this is actually a very valuable tool as well, because you can see the differences in language and what was included in one state, what was not included in one state, and why that matters. Those debates can happen a little easier too.
And I think also too, as well, it also makes it very objective, because there's lots of, subjective things out there, and there's lots of noise out there, and being able to actually say, here is the definition of this particular AI, provides that grounding, right? And when you provide that grounding and you're able to use that to compare with other legislations from other states, then you kind of increase that trustiness that this particular research, this particular study, amplifies, because you have a rigorous kind of a methodology, right? A lot of times, when we see things that are being studied, or so, a lot of people kind of question is that, well, how trustworthy is this? Can I accept this? Is this something that, what's the basis, right? And I think what, we've done here is, hopefully, for people who look at it, that we provided this objective lens to them, so they can distinguish what is noise that people hear about all the times about different AI policies and legislation, and what's actually objective, and what's you can actually take from it. So
yeah, I think and that's part of just the type of work that we do at IGPA, is this idea of nonpartisan research and evaluation of policy. And that's exactly the approach we wanted to take with this. We're not really making positions in this at all. It's just here is the landscape of what's out there. It's a matter of fact. These are the laws in the different states. But having that in one place, like you said, is super valuable, just to make comparative notes for yourself and draw your conclusions that you'd like from that. But we are so excited to be able to release this tool and have this be a resource for folks that are thinking about how AI impacts society and the types of emergent risks that have come about, and how states are handling that toward responsible AI use. In various industries, not just in, mine's education, yours is business, Zach, you're in communication and the humanities. It's across all industries, all areas of focus. Okay, let's move on. Let's talk about some other hot news that has been all over the tech blogs and tech news, but I don't even know what to call it anymore. I think it's Openclaw, but Claude bot, Moltbot, Openclaw, Moltbook. You might have seen these terms pop up in the news over the last 3-4 weeks. This is one kind of product that has changed its name over this short period and went viral. It got really popular. And what it is all the same product, but what it is an AI agent framework that you can download to your computer and have the agent just completely run on its own on the computer, and it has full access to your stuff. You connect it to your messaging apps, you connect it to even your credit card, probably. You can connect it to all kinds of stuff, and it just autonomously runs. And I think the latest name is Openclaw for this software. But Openclaw just runs on a computer and can pretty much do anything you give it access to. And so what we're seeing is millions of these Openclaw instances be created by tech enthusiasts, AI enthusiasts, developers, people that are experimenting with it, and just creating kind of a whole almost culture of its own. Because what happened was the natural evolution of things. Somebody created a social network for these bots to interact on, right?
Yeah, because that's what bots wanted.
You've got these bots, they're doing all your stuff for you every day, and then somebody's like, hey, they need a social network, they need a Facebook. So somebody created this thing called Moltbook, where your Openclaw instance can go on and post and talk to other AI agents that are on there, and it's AI agents only. No humans allowed. Humans can observe, but humans can't post. It has to be accessed from an API endpoint for the Openclaw instance. And then we're seeing a lot of these stories that just this whole mania that has taken over of people getting into this and checking it out. And I've seen articles, we'll post a couple of these, but it's like a whole new religion has been created on there by the agents, and there's just these social interactions that are occurring. One article from MIT Tech Review made it very similar. It's making comparisons to Pokemon and the Pokemon craze, because you've got these little things that go do your bidding and are kind of autonomous, and so there's some parallels to that. But my immediate thing, and I study AI, but I really am concerned with the security issues with this, and just
yeah, for sure,
free reign of my life over. So I know it's experimental for a lot of folks. I know it's just a fun little toy for the moment, but the idea of agents is adding a whole new layer of risk to their interactions than existed by you just running, say, like an AI app on your computer, and you're adding AI apps with the ability to do things for you, especially if you hand over your credit card. It gets a little worrisome for me, at least to start. I don't want to throw the idea out, because I like to study the stuff and think about it. But what are you guys' thoughts on this? The whole Moltbook and Openclaw craze and the social network for bots.
So for me, first of all, that comes to my mind is that, are these bots? They're too lonely, so they need some companionship or so. So
you know what lonely is?
Yeah.
Have we defined lonely for them? Do they?
But I think when I read about this actually makes me think about, is this maybe the new type of application? We talk about agentic AI, right? In terms of like having agents to do particular workflows, right? To do automation. You see businesses are using that to create certain type of applications for business to do particular tasks. Is this a new kind of application for agentic AI, working by itself, doing and creating this kind of this network by itself? But then another thing too that brings to my mind is that, well, how is this going to play in terms of what they actually post and what they actually, and because social network is all about conversation, is about opinions and so forth. And so will we also get this kind of like, maybe there's this bias or ethical, right, considerations that when these bots are communicating with others and posting on the social network, because now this becomes an additional kind of trust issue or so for humans to actually, when they see the stuff, they cannot participate, right? Because you said that no humans are allowed, but now when they see this is another type of news item or a new type of resource that's out there, and it's gonna cause even more confusion, as we already have so many information overload right now, and then we're gonna have another this type of AI bot social network. I already read my stuff from LinkedIn or from Facebook. But I know those things are posted by friends that I know. Now, if I have some bot that's posting on this, do I trust that bot? Did it have any type of other types of purposes that beyond what it was supposed to do? How
Do
do
you
I know
trust
that?
your bot to tell you what the other bots are saying? I mean,
Yeah.
whole chain of information custody that
So that's why this all goes back towards technically, yes, we can this can all be done, but socially, responsibly, the responsible AI part, that is the question in everything that we've talked about, so today, and also any type of AI, right?
So here's the thing. The idea of a social network for bots is just very silly, obviously, because bots don't inherently need to be social, right? So the question that it begs is what comes about, right, from a bot that is being, quote, social with another bot. And just like any human, it's information exchange, and that's where the security issue is, right? Like, what information are they sharing, and why? Because you can create the quote unquote bot, but like, what is that bot also scraping and learning and finding from other bots? And so I have a concern that we can talk about, the bots are learning and creating things and blah blah blah, but like, really, in the end, the question is, what are they getting from each other, and where is the security? Where's the data security? Because what do these bots have for everything else, and what access do they have, and what can they do with this information? I'm more concerned about the end user, the human user, the meat puppet.
You heard it here, folks. The user,
human user.
So
I'm more concerned about what they're going to do with that data. And of course, this is just typical, the sleight of hand that they end up doing with showing all this fancy weird things and making up the fun narratives about AIs and agency and everything else. But really comes down to is who owns these things, and what are they getting out of the information that they extract. So
we got
so one of the things,
powerful proofs of concept. That's it definitely is that's happened, but it definitely also brings up a lot of these questions we're talking about. So it raises it to the surface, maybe so far in a semi-harmless way we can actually see through example some of the conversations we should be having about responsible AI and ethics and data custody and things like that.
So this actually kind of just made me think about, if everybody remembers, I think it was maybe more than like 5 or 6 years ago or so, there was this kind of news where there were two voice assistants that were like talking to each other. I think it was maybe Cortana, Microsoft Cortana, and then it was, I think, maybe Amazon Alexa. And before, they had a very tame, conversation. They were talking to each other and so forth. And then it got to the point where they were swearing at each other and they were like cursing each other and so forth, right? So that kind of reminded me of that kind of conversation. And who knows what this could happen if we and that's why you need to have guardrails, right? So the thing is that's why I think is that no humans involved. No, I don't think so. I think there still needs to be somebody there that kind of moderates to get to the point where if something goes rogue or something that is not very good or so, then you can actually be able to kind of like stop it before it becomes a mess.
I don't think humans are able to be able to parse that at that speed.
That's what I was gonna say too. Is I wonder, what
the guardrails are off as soon as you allow agents to be able to chat at that kind of level, and you would have to you would have to create new agents to be able to parse the code of those agents to be able to see whether or not those agents were doing other things with the agents, data.
Yeah, not just the text
like
being
layers.
shared, but the actual code and
this is just like with any kind of technology of it's the the war of who has the most whatever, right? It's whether it's nuclear missiles or outdoing the thieves and the criminals, it's whenever you introduce that, it's a race, and the only people who are going to win in the race are the people who have the most tech. And
so maybe what that just Zach, what you just kind of said made me just think about. So maybe you need a so-called police AI agent to monitor the other AI agents. And then if they do something wrong or so, then you have to put them into some justice, or something.
AI jail.
Rogue AI agent jail. Yeah. Now we're fully immersed in a science fiction movie right now. I mean, this is what William Gibson said. He stopped writing science fiction because everything that he's already written has come to pass. So he's like, I'm done. I don't want science fiction.
I have no more material.
You've done it all. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for jumping in the conversation today. We're going to close up here. Anything you're doing interesting this week or next that you want to share with the group?
So for me, I just did a master class, this morning regarding about, responsible AI and what organizations, can do with that. So, it was really great. And so I think it really, started a lot of conversations, where a lot of people, just use the AI, but they don't realize in terms of, what does responsible AI mean? And with all the stuff that's happening so fast right now, right? We talked about, all of this, AI agent stuff and networks and so forth. I think it's more than ever that we need to have these really, really important conversations in regards to responsible, AI, and making sure, it doesn't get to the point where, it's beyond repair or something. I don't know.
I've got almost nothing. I'm happily just been reading a lot of books. Hopefully, as little to do with AI as possible lately. I need a break from some of it sometimes.
No, this is great. Thank you again for joining the panel. Appreciate it as always. We always have fun here. Thank you to the audience for listening to the podcast today too. The links to any of the articles that we mentioned are going to be available in the description below, in the episode info, where you can check the links and things. Check the links to panelist bios also. All the information about us is up there, as well as information about IGPA and our working group. One quick reminder before we close that all opinions expressed on this show are those of the individual panelists and not of the opinions of the University of Illinois System, the Institute of Government and Public Affairs, or the three constituent UI universities in Urbana-Champaign, Chicago, or Springfield. So thanks for joining us, and we look forward to you listening along on our next episode.